Good evening, wanderer. Let your shoulders soften and feel the mattress cradle your spine. Tonight we follow the slow, fragrant curl of steam that drifts from every morning mug, coffee. We will travel back to the moment when the bean was exotic, slightly forbidden, and precious as black silk. Our journey begins beneath an Ottoman dawn, moves through candlelit London alleys, slips into the green forests of Ethiopia, and ends in gilded Persian salons where porcelain cups ring against silver saucers. No jolts or caffeine crashes lie ahead, only the calm unfolding of a story that took 5 centuries to brew. When your eyelids grow heavy, close them. I will keep the brazier glowing. You opened your inner eyes inside of altered caravans round the outskirts of Istanbul, year 1554. Horses stamp in their stalls. A sleepy guard taps his spear against stone, counting breaths to stay awake. The eastern sky remains charcoal, but a thin blade of silver glimmers above the sea of Marmara. In one corner of the courtyard, a blue-painted door stands ajar. From within drifts and aroma equal parts earth and ember, roasted coffee. Inside the narrow chamber to Yemeni merchants, Hogam and Yusuf, ready their brazier. Hogam pours pale green beans into a wide copper pan and holds it over cherry wood embers. The beans click softly as they turn, each pop as delicate as a pin tapping glass. Yusuf, kneeling beside a brass mortar taller than his knee, crushes yesterday's roast with measured strokes. The pestle rises, falls, rises, a slow heartbeat echoing off mud brick walls. When the beans darken to glossy chestnut, Hockham fans them in a reed basket. Paper-thin skins flutter away like autumn petals. Yusuf chooses a saizy, polishes its copper lip with a cloth dipped in rose water, and sets it into warm sand above the coals. A ladle of cistern water meets the hot metal with a muted hiss. He adds a spoon of fresh ground coffee and a whisper of cardamom. Tiny whirlpools eddy and settle as the liquid thickens. Bubbles gather along the rim, swelling into a single brown crescent. Yusuf lifts the pot, lets foam fall, then sets it back twice more. 3 risings, a ritual older than the city's domes. The finished brew slips into a handle-less porcelain finken, its surface shimmering like still oil beneath lamplight. A wool merchant from Bursa is the first customer. He drinks in silence, bitterness prying open eyelids the way dawn pries at shutters. The door creaks wider. A scribe, quill tucked in sash, joins the merchant. An Armenian jeweler follows, then a Greek monk in travel-dusty robes. They crouch on cedar stools round a table no bigger than a chessboard. Coffee dims social distance. Everyone drinks from the same cups, breath steaming in the chill. At first they mutter about grain prices, then shift to poetry, politics, celestial omens, conversation rising like smoke. Above them a single sesame oil lamp sputters. Its hiss blends with the distant nickering of horses. Resin sweet air thickens the room until thoughts feel buoyant. Outside, the god pauses. Catching the scent, He recalls rumors that Kov stirs unruly debate and distracts worshippers from prayer, yet the guard lingers, inhaling before walking on. With sunrise still a rumor, Yusuf unrolls a poplar tablet and logs each roasted batch. Weight, origin, roast degree. Imperial inspectors levy fines on merchants who misdeclare cargo or smuggle fertile beans beyond Ottoman borders. Yusuf's handwriting is small, patient. Every loop of ink carries the aroma of cardamom. A bean drops, bounces across the dirt. Yusuf retrieves it, wipes ash from its surface, places it back in the tray. Ottoman law forbids live seeds from leaving Yemen. Yet seeds slide into cups, saddle seams, hollow point reed pens. This single bean could sprout on a far hillside. Rewriting maps of trade without a scribe ever lifting a quill. Now the sky pales to pewter, Yusuf. Hefts to linen sacks, ties them with crimson cord, and heads toward the Messiah casks the Egyptian spice bazaar. Stall keepers lift wooden shutters, pyramids of saffron glow like embers. Cinnamon cones rise shoulder high beside mounds of indigo. Turmeric, dried rose petals. The scent palette is dizzying. Clove heat, fig sweetness. Musk, Yusuf strides to a master spice dealer who wears fingers stained by saffron. The dealer pinches 3 beans, cracks them with his teeth, nods, brass scales clink, counterweights settle. He scribbles a number on wax, bigger than last week's. Coffee's price edges upward with its fame. Yusuf accepts. Money changes hands. Legends follow beans onto camel caravans, into sailor duffels, through palace kitchens. Whispers follow Yusuf through the maze of stalls. Certain imams petition the Sultan to outlaw cough. They claim the drink phrase knows, sparks insolence, lengthens dice games into dawn. Yusuf feels no ripple of fear. He remembers similar bans in Aden and Mecca. Each raised prices, tightened desire, and birthed secret cafes behind shuttered doors. In the coming months, a decree indeed will close dozens of stalls. Roasters will move to cellars lit by tallow candles, stirring pans in near silence for now. However, the bazaar buzzes openly, and Yemeni sacks disappear into back rooms like treasure chests. Back in the courtyard, Hakan pours the day's final seifi for himself. Outside, the muezzin S first syllable unfurls over rooftops, a lone ribbon of sound lifting to the brightening sky. The note hangs, then resolves into the call to prayer. Hakan drinks slowly, letting bitterness fold into warmth. He closes the blue door, and for one hushed moment the only sound is the breath-soft sigh of cooling embers. When the sun clears the rooftops, traders swap stories. One retells Coley's legend. Goats dancing on a Kaffir hillside after nibbling bright red cherries. Monks toss the berries into fire, drawn by the aroma, and soon brew the first dark cup. No one knows if the tale is true, but each retelling casts a glow over the listeners, as if emberlight coats every syllable. Lean back against the courtyard wall. Feel rough plaster warm under your shoulder blades. The scent of roast lingers on your skin like smoking wool. In a few days, sacks of these beans will board a Venetian galley and sail toward the haze of a western horizon. When they dock, candlelit alleyways in London will hum with pamphleteers and poets, all held awake by the same dark brew. But that belongs to the next segment. Rest here for a breath or two. Smell coffee's final curl of smoke, cardamon's fading sweetness, the morning's cool stone against your back. By the third hour after sunrise, the small roasting stall has emptied its brazier and carried brew pots across the Gilded Bridge to a freshly whitewashed shop in Tottergill. Sunlight, reflected off the golden horn, flickers through woodland latticework and lands in golden bars across rough-sawn benches. The room smells of cedar boards still oozing sap mingled with the darker perfume of newly ground coffee. On one bench sits an aging janissary whose polished boots creak each time he crosses his legs. Beside him, a university student unrolls parchment covered in geometric problems. Opposite, a silk dyer fans himself with willow bark to cool the sweat rising from his collar. 3 brass strays sag beneath the weight of earth-brown cups. The liquid inside is too dense to reveal a reflection. Instead, the surface shows only a dull gleam, like hematite caught in lamplight. A boy no older than 12 glides between tables, balancing a copper kettle knit on the rim. He refills each finken slowly enough that one can hear the faint glug of liquid folding into itself. Nobody hurries. Outside, donkey bells jangle over cobbles, and a distant hammer rings at the docks. But inside, the coffee house time seems tidal, inhaling and exhaling at the pace of shifting embers. At a corner table, the city scribe, Mahmoud Effendi, keeps the weekly ledger of coffee duties. His stylus pauses whenever voices rise. Today, he records 72 acres of roasted beans entering from the Yemeni caravan. A stern tax collector robes bleached bone white, beard combed to a perfect point leans over Mahmoud's shoulder and whispers a reminder. An imperial decree is rumored, one that may forbid public coffee houses on grounds of moral restlessness. Mahmoud dips his reed pen in ogolik, lets black droplets swell at the nib, then continues writing. A moment later, he annotates the page with a small dot he alone understands. If the decree arrives, he can notify traders before guards hammer shutters closed. In silence, he feels the pulse of ink drying on parchment, smells it mingle with the faint tang of cardamom still clinging to his sleeve, and wonders whether ink or coffee travels further in a single breath of rumor. Outside the shop, two Greek sailors negotiate with a camel driver from Diyarbakir. They trade a length of Tyrian-dyed cloth for a linen pouch containing 20 raw beans fertile. Illegal. The sailors will hide them inside hollow reed flutes stashed in the ship's galley. If questioned, they will claim the reed helps season salted herring. Should the beans survive damp bilges and salt air, they will reach Ragusa, and thence the estates of a Venetian merchant who dreams of planting the first European grove. The camel driver wipes sweat from his brow, pockets the cloth, and pulls his turban tighter. He knows the penalty, yet also knows that dreams of steaming cups gleaming beneath candelabra fetch prices no decree can match. When the great muezzin of Hagia Sophia lifts his voice at noon, conversation ebbs. Patrons set cups down softly enough that porcelain barely clicks against cedar. Some rise to wash hands at a copper basin set in a niche. The water runs cool, eddying in a groove carved by generations of wrists. Outside, sun flashes on curved domes and dagger minarets. Pigeons swirl against a pure blue sky before settling on ledges wound like hearthstones. The city exhales warm, slightly resinous scent of pine tar melting in ship masts, mingled with the caramel undertone of roasting coffee drifting from side alleys. By mid-afternoon, shadows stretch long enough to pool beneath stools. Hawkham has reopened the blue door of his roasting room, but now roasts in half darkness, shutters barely cracked. The rumored decree has not arrived, yet caution feels wise. He turns the beans more slowly, letting the pan ride low over small embers so smoke hugs the floorboards instead of pouring through the vent. A widow from Skdar slips inside with a cloth bundle of cinnamon sticks. She asks for a 6 dirhams worth of coffee dusted lightly with the spice. Her youngest son studies geometry late into the night. She says, and the cinnamon calms his chest. Hawkham measures a scoop of finely milled bean, adds a pinch of ground bark, folds it into wax paper, ties the bundle with flax thread. He passes it across the counter, and in that exchange both understand that comfort can hide in the crack between a decree and tomorrow's sunrise. As the sun sinks, Yusuf carries 2 small barrels each no wider than his forearm toward the sea walls. Sea air sharpens the scent of salt and tangleweed. Mooring ropes groan against stone pullings. At a low pier he meets a Venetian factor whose fur collar looks absurd in the lingering heat. The factor inspects the barrels, taps their oaken staves, listens for hollowness, satisfied they contain only roasted beans, no contraband silk or ivory. Payment comes in silver ducats that chime like soft bells. Yusuf tucks the coins inside his sash. The factor gestures toward a lateen-legged galley rocking gently. Lanterns sway, casting fish scale light across starred planks. Within an hour the barrels will slide into the hold, wedged between sacks of pistachios and jars of rosewater. The galley will steer west, hugging the glitter of the moonlit archipelago before venturing into the open Adriatic. Yusuf watches until the deck lights recede beyond the breakwater, then turns back toward the city glowing amber beneath its forest of minarets. Somewhere behind those minarets a single lamp in the scribal office still burns, illuminating Mahmoud Effendi's careful ledger and the ink-dot code that warns of decrees yet unsigned. The caravan's rye where dawn's first roast crackled is now nearly silent. A stable boy forks straw beneath a drowsy mule. Bats loop under the archway, hunting flies drawn to lantern oil. Hawkham sits cross-legged, hands cupped round a fine and sweetened cup of coffee cooling toward night air. The steam is faint, visible only when he tips the porcelain toward a lamp. He recalls the tales travelers told over morning cups about a black lion roaming the Nubian desert whose heart was said to beat like a mortal drum after tasting coffee cherries. About monks in Persia who could recite 100 verses without stumbling once. About Venetian nobles who would pay thrice the price for beans grown in the volcanic earth of Java. He wonders which tales will still be told when his beard turns white. Behind him, embers sigh and collapse into a soft grey hush. He pours the dregs onto the hearthstones, rises and closes the blue door. Metal latch meets ring with a muted clink. Coffee's fragrance lingers, clinging to the mud brick walls the way the last blush of daylight clings to marble columns. Breathe in the faint remains of smoke, cardamom and rose water. Feel your ribs rise gently. Then settle. The night sky above Istanbul glitters with constellations sailors follow out of her. Bosporus westward toward Venice, Marseille, and the fog-damped mouth of the Thames where candlelit alleys await the bean's rival. Clouds hang so low over Ethiopia's green highlands that starlight seems trapped inside cotton. A young goatherd named Caldy dozes beside an ember-red watchfire. Hoofbeats jolt him awake. His flock is rearing and butting, eyes bright, nibbling clusters of shiny crimson berries on a low shrub. Caldy tastes one berry-sweet pulp. Bitter stone and feels warmth and chill behind his brow. At dawn, he carries a handful to the mud-brick monastery of Gilded. Distrustful monks toss the berries onto the kitchen brazier. The room blooms with a scent like damp earth meeting rain-wet cedar. They rake the seeds, crush them, pour hot spring water over the fragments, and separate. Night prayers stretch to sunrise without yawns. Word of the bun of the wakeful. Cherry travels faster than caravans. To centuries later, burlap sacks of dried cherries cross the Red Sea into Yemen. Sufi dervishes adopt the brew during all-night chanting. Merchants tally ledgers by a lamp glow. Moga's alleys fill with kilns where roasters stir beans in wide iron pans. Waiting for the first soft pop the shells I've surrender. Ottoman officers forbid export of fertile beans. Yet seeds slip inside reed pears, camel girts, sailor calves. Each sprout that evades the Sultan's edict carries potential fortune. 1616. Dutch merchant Peter van den broke bribes ago. Seals a pot of damp earth found a single seedling, and ships it to Amsterdam's Hortus Botanicus under greenhouse stoves. The plant survives North Sea fog. Cuttings sail back east to Java. Terraces echo with the crackle of new fires as Javanese farmers learn the slow roast. By 1711, the first sacks labeled Java reach Amsterdam. Merchant ledgers coin the term Java fresh. Drizzle dampens Thames Huards in St. Michael's Alley. An Armenian servant, Pasqua Rosie, erects a wood and plackwood, coffee 1 penny per dish. Dark hands crowd the doorway. They sip tar black liquid and wince, yet line up for a second. Within a decade, London counts 50 coffee stalls. Roasters add sugar shaved from Caribbean loaves. Patrons stir with quills they later use to draft pamphlets extolling coffee's power to cure gout. Melancholy and watery humors, candle stubs flicker over damp brick. Each gulp feels like sunrise during rain. By 1700, the city lists 2,000 houses, each with a persona. Jonathan's floor gritty with chalk where stock jobbers get share prices. Will's pipe, smoke, and cults. Poets polishing verses between seps. Charles favored by physicians who speak in Latinova. Frothing cups. Admission costs a penny. It buys coffee, loose sheets, and license to argue with strangers. Londoners dub them penny universities. A broadside titled The Women's Petition Against Coffee accuses the drink of turning husbands verbose yet impotent. Coffee house owners answer with the men's defense, praising the brew for eloquence and stamina. Pamphlet volleys ignite curiosity. Consumption climbs. Charles II briefly decrees closure of the houses, then rescinds the order amid public outcry. Midwinter nights now glow with twin scents. Coal. Smoke outside, coffee steam within. Isaac Newton meets at the Grecian. Samuel Pepys records coffee for the first time. New and not so ill. Coffee has become the city's second bloodstream. Inside Edward Lloyd's candlelit shop, shed captains mumble whole tonnage while underwriters jot figures, dishes clink. Parchment soaks ink. Coffee keeps columns straight during fog-thick nights. One spark leaping from a roasting pan burns half a block. Insurance clerks immediately invent new fire risk premiums, commas brewed straight from the bean. 1723. Lieutenant Gabriel de Crew cradles a glass bell jar aboard the brig Dana, rationing his own water to a coffee sapling bound for Martinique, planted in volcanic soil. Its descendants perfume the hills by moonlight. Beans flow to St. Domingue, Suriname, Brazil, planters by enslaved labor. European drinkers stir sugar into black cups, oblivious to the chain that sweetens bitterness. Dawn spills gold across Dennis Diderot's garret. He warms a tin pot, pours thick brew into a chipped porcelain cup, adds a sugar square. The city is silent, but for a chimney sweep's brush and distant carriage wheels. Diderot calls coffee a sober companion that keeps tyranny of drowsiness at bay. Though the porcelain rim still smells faintly of Shanghai packing straw, let goats leaping on. Cava slopes, Surrey kettles hissing in mocha. London quills scratching. And Caribbean blossoms quilting hillsides merge into one fragrant ribbon. Ahead waits Ethiopia's cloud forest, where botanists kneel beside wild shrubs, tracing flavors not yet tasted. Their wicker baskets glisten with rain-slick cherries. Bees hum above orchid roots. And coffee's oldest heartbeat still echoes under green twilight. Rue de l'Ancien, Comedy, Paris, 1725. Morning haze curls above chimney pots like silk ribbon. Inside Café Procope chandeliers wink against mirrors beveled so slightly the room seems to breathe. Mahogany tables carry small cones of brown sugar shaved from St. Domingue loaves. Customers tap. Crystals into snow-white cups painted with cobalt guns. A waiter in linen waistcoat glides between chairs, left arm balanced under a silver tray. He lowers each cup as though delivering confession. The coffee is thick, almost silk. Its surface marbled by amber threads of melting sugar. The young Voltaire counts lumps aloud. By the 6th, He pronounces the bitterness tamed and begins to scribble a letter railing against. Clerical gloom across the room. Rousseau lifts his cup with both hands, eyes drifting toward the rain-damp window as if the street itself might answer a philosophical riddle. Outside, carriage wheels hiss over wet cobblestones within. Spoons touch porcelain, soft chimes punctuating talk of eclipses, grain tells. And the newest rumors from their side, a seamstress, sleeves rolled past the elbow, sips standing near the stove. Coffee's heat evaporates lye and lanolin scents from her day's labor. The gulf between court wit and workshop toil narrows to the width of a cup's rim. Each spoonful of sweetness bears an invisible freight across the Atlantic. Cane fields ripple under the Martinique sun. At dawn, gangs line up beneath overseers' whips. Cut, strip, stack. Cut, strip, stack. The humid air smells of molasses and iron. At night, fires roar under copper cauldrons. Cane juice bubbles. Thickens, spins into crystals. Ships depart for De France loaded with hogsheads marked as diesel wind. Cures the staves, rats no sugar dust that seeps through seams. In Paris nobody speaks of the branded backs that make sweetness cheap. They speak instead of clarity, of how coffee and sugar together sharpen vision and banish afternoon torpor. The words liberté and citoyen begin to pepper conversations, lifted by caffeine bright urgency even while their cups overflow with colonial labor. Hundreds of. Leagues east, December frost sheets Viennesringstrasse. Inside Café Frauenhuber candlelight bounces off brass samovars imported by Armenian traders. A former Ottoman courier named Kolshitsky has popularized coffee mixed with honey and capped by a cola. Ilk pale swirl calming the brew as Blackheart. A military clerk dips feather quill into walnut. Ink calculates forage needs for a cavalry regiment and finds the numbers no longer jump. In the corner, a trio of cello strings hum through a minuet. Coffee scent rises and falls with the bow strokes. Outside, whose crunch ice so brittle it sounds like breaking glass. Coffee's heat swirls behind cafe windows frosted opaque. The drink becomes both hearth and conversation. Rio de Janeiro, 1727. Portuguese Lieutenant Francisco de Melo Palheta disembarks from Cayenne with a bouquet presented to the governor's wife. Inside the floral bundle nestle fertile coffee seeds. Twin-lined like cat's eyes, he plants them near Belém. Seedlings take root beneath towering sumoma trees. By 1800, Brazil's Prebo Valley flutters with glossy leaves, white blossoms pumping perfume into moist dogs. Mule trains haul burlap bales to port, hulls creak under weight. The Portuguese crown steadies its treasury on the beam's dark promise. Back in London, 1730. The daily current composing room metals with metal type thrown into trays. Apprentices ladling. The color of plum skin. Journeymen lock forms into iron chasers. Proof pages steam where they rest atop still hot coffee. Hot speeding drying time. Reporters, sleeves ink flecked. Elbow space at spindly tables to swap ship manifests and court whispers, each cup leaving dark crescents on rough pine. A flick of a typesetter's wrist misplaces a slug, and rumors of a French fleet balloon by morning delivery. Coffee houses seize the copy. Debate ignites. The Admiralty dispatches inquiries before lunch. Caffeine drumming in every clerk's pulse. The city's nervous system is tuned to the brown waves sloshing through pewter dishes. Birmingham, 1780s. The Cadbury brothers experiment with cocoa and sugar, marketing a gentler pick-me-up for pious consumers wary of coffee sharpening effects. Yet at dawn, their factory workers still start shifts with tin mugs of weak coffee laced with chicory. The new chocolate drink sells to school children. The old bean keeps the loom's punching cloth. Coffee stands its ground. The industrial age's metronome. By 1790 to the brokers at Jonathan. This coffee house formalized their outdoor trades under a buttonwood tree on Wall Street. At home, they still sip midnight coffee to tally ledgers. Oxford Dons published tracts arguing that caffeine quickens what yet spares mortals. That German chemist, Friedrich Branch, isolates caffeine, selling small vials to doctors who dose melancholic patients. The circle from hillside berry to laboratory flask closes, history tightening like a drawstring. Now let city lanterns and Caribbean sunfields dim. Picture the cloud forests of Kaffir the Bean's ancestral home where vines drip silver rain. And wild rabbicate trees bend beneath cherries glistening like garnet beads in the under canopy. Botanists crouch with calipers, measuring leaf veins, logging altitude. Tasting pulping with jasmine, they search for genes to resist drought and disease not yet brewed, yet already vital to future mornings. A woven basket fills slowly, each cherry's skin cool against pollen. These murmur above moss-soft roots. In the distance, hornbills echo through mist. The air tastes faintly of moss and sweet bark. Utterly unlike London's soot or Paris sugar. Here coffee's oldest whisper still curls through leaves exactly as when Colley's goats danced. Feel your own breath slow to match the forest's rhythm. Inhale moss, exhale distant rain. In the next segment, we will linger beneath those green vaults, trace genetic branches, and unearth forgotten wrecks whose seawater-preserved beans still taste of spice and smoke. Dawn breaks almost unnoticed inside Ethiopia's montane rainforest. The rising sun paints the sky gold. Yet under the green vault of Harana the light rises as dim jade, sifted through tears of leaves. You stand on a springy mat of moss and peppery wild basil. Overhead, vines loop between ancient podocarpus trunks. Every breath carries droplets so fine they seem to float instead of fall. Ahead, two botanists crouch beside a shrub no higher than a child's shoulder. Its oval leaves are leathery, edges ruffled, their undersides traced by maroon veins. Clinging to slender stems are droop scoffy cherries deep crimson where sunlight spears through, dusky purple in the shadows. One botanist, Dr. Selim Tesse, pulls a caliper from her vest, measures leaf width to 1/10 of a millimeter, then murmurs the number to her colleague, Dr. Rune Muller. They log the figure in a waterproof notebook spotted with mist. The two move silently, boots sinking into loam because forest birds begin courtship calls now. Liquid fluting that rises, pauses, then fades like a sigh. Each call is answered by a rustle of wings among lichen-draped branches. Even the botanist's pencil scratches seem impolite in so hushed a cathedral. Salon lifts a ripe cherry, splits it between thumbnails, exposing silvery parchment that coats twin beans. She slips one bean into a portable refractometer, peers at the eyepiece, and notes sugar content. The reading is higher than any cultivated variety she tasted last month in Sidoma Plantation's evidence. This genetic line stores more sugars, perhaps more floral compounds. Hoon crushes the second bean between molars slowly, thoughtfully. His eyes widen. He murmurs, jasmine, lime zest, raw honey. Seldom smiles. Her grandparents called such forest beans adashbana, secret coffee, because they were gathered only for holiday guests. A yellow-banded bee lands on a nearby blossom shape like a five-pointed star. Pollen dusts the bee's thorax before it lifts into mist. In this forest, bees are both pollinators and archivists, ferrying fragments of DNA from tree to tree. The botanists harvest not only cherries, but also winged anthers and pale filaments to map allelic pathways that cultivated groves lost centuries ago. Deep within the forest stands the crumbling stone wall of Deborah Bono's Yebid hermitage. Legend tells of a 15th century monk who tended a garden of 40 coffee types gathered from valleys up to 12 days' walk away. Only a single tree remains inside the moss-choked enclosure, its bark fissured like cracked parchment. Selim clips to leaves, seals them in foil, and labels the packet Bunagur, a name found in a 17th century American that praised a coffee sweet as wedding wine. No cultivated farm has recorded this lineage. Its genes could rescue orchards now wilting under rising nighttime temperatures. The packet will travel to Addis Ababa's gene bank, then perhaps to nurseries on other continents. But for the moment, it lives only in form. Notebooking, and the scent of crushed leaf lingering on Selim's glove. Mid-morning clouds burst without warning. Silver beads rattle through the canopy, breaking into vapor before hitting ground. Botanists tug canvas tops over sampling gear. You step beneath a natural awning of Sheffer leaves as wide as serving platters. Rain on foliage sounds like thousands of rice grains dropped on silk, steady, fine, hypnotic. Hoon sets up a microphone and records 10 minutes of rainfall. Later, acoustic ecologists will slow the track fourfold, revealing hidden patterns, microrhythms shaped by leaf size and drop velocity. Some sleep therapy apps already layer such Ethiopian rain loops beneath piano drones. Tonight you merely listen, chest rising with each cool inhale, shoulders slackening as the forest exhales petrichor laced with crushed coriander seed. Rain eases to a hutch, cicadas click alive. Hoon unrolls a laminated map stamped with sonar images of the Red Sea floor. 50 meters down, near the Dolak archipelago, lies a timber hull dated to the mid-1600s. 2 years earlier, a salvage crew retrieved amphory packed with cinnamon stick sand. Unexpectedly, 9 burlap-wrapped bundles of coffee beans preserved in anoxic silt. Laboratory cupping revealed notes of clove, smoke, and tamarind and extinct mocha cultivar. Selim explains that isotope ratios in those beans match the basaltic soils of Yemen's Haraz Mountains. Yet their chlorogenic acid profile echoes wild Ethiopian strains. Possibly traders once planted forest seedlings on terraced Yemen slopes, hoping to marry yield with flavor. The wreck becomes a time capsule floating in dark water, holding clues to forgotten breeding attempts. From a canvas pouch, Selim removes a slim, battery-powered sequencer no larger than a palm. She feeds a sliver of fresh bean tissue into a translucent channel. Inside, Nana pours rare DNA as electrical squiggles are. T, G, see each pattern dancing across a handheld screen. Data streams to a cloud server in Addis, then to Nairobi, then Zurich, weaving the forest into a lattice of comparative genomes built on photons and undersea cables. Some alleles bear immunity to coffee leaf rust. Others code for floral esters that smell of bergamot. Each discovery may write futures in remote plantations where farmers struggle against erratic rains. But the moment remains quiet. Low beeps from the sequencer. Distant hornbill croaks. A single drip sliding from leaf tip to moss. Work pauses for lunch. Selim pours coffee brewed forest style. Cherries boiled whole with ginger, then strained. The cup is milder, tinged rose gold instead of ink black, pulpy and sweet. You sip slowly, noticing flavors that never survive high-temperature roasts. Melon rind, green almond, sugared lime. Neither botanist speaks for several minutes. Silence feels respectful as though conversation might bruise the fragile gene codes drifting in kettles of rain. Instead you share stillness, broken only by soft slurps and the thunk of a gourd cup placed on moss. After lunch the trio treks down slope. The canopy thins. Sunlight strikes red soil dotted with straw huts. At a clearing stands a low, tin-roofed shed office of the Bifta Godina Farmers Cooperative. Inside, parchment beans dry on raised beds, stirring under the slow whir of a solar-powered fan. Farmers wearing woven scarves discuss fermentation times, moisture targets, international certifications. They taste their own crop brewed in a clay jemina and compare it to forest samples, noting Carol, blackcurrant, lemongrass. Selim shares news. The European roaster pledges a premium price for microlot harvests that include 5% wild gene cherries. A buzz of excitement fills the room, prospects of school fees paid, rust-resistant saplings, perhaps a village clinic with refrigeration. Coffee, once smuggled seed by seed, circles home bearing possibilities instead of decrees. Evening fog coils through gullies. You begin the hike back. Boots meet leaf litter now cool and fragrant. Understory ferns glow faintly in twilight. Cicadas click in thickening waves until sound becomes a fabric that lifts and falls with your breath. At the forest edge you turn once more. High branches sway, scattering the last daylight like shards of glass. Somewhere in that living maze, bees still drop pollen from blossoms unchanged since Coley's day. Clouds close overhead, the pewter lid. You inhale, tasting a final note of jasmine carried on chill wind, and step into the dark, carrying the forest in memory like heat sealed in clay. A week later, far from the misty forest, you enter the sensory laboratory of the Addis Ababa Agricultural Institute. Floor-to-ceiling windows cast soft rectangles across stainless work tables. Every surface seems to exhale the faint perfume of roasted grain. On one bench stand 9 glass jars, each filled with beans the color of warm mahogany and labeled Dolic Rec 1664. Salt crystals still cling to a few creases where burlap once pressed their skins. A quality grader named Ilu twists one jar open. The room blooms with aromas that feel half familiar, half antique charred cedar, dried plum, distant campfire. Technicians grind the beans. Set porcelain cupping bowls in neat rows. Pour 93-degree water in identical logs. And time a 4-minute bloom. When crusts break and steam curls upward, you lean in. First wave smells of tamarind and burnt sugar. Second wave unfurls gingerbread. Then something wilder, pungent, like myrrh resin warming in a censer. 3 sips in. A panelist smiles, jotting a single word. Ghost floral. It is the flavor of extinct terroir taste resurrected from a sealed dark vault. No plantation on Earth can produce it today. Yet gene sequencing shows snippets of that lost profile lingering in wild trees seldom tagged only days ago. Down a hallway. Drive getter Chuka bead stands over a light box where DNA barcodes scroll like comet tails across a tablet screen. Wild samples from Bunagur align against sequences extracted from the shipwreck. Beans 23 matching markers glow green alleles for slow sugar conversion and elevated chlorogenic acidity. Sleeper traits that can steady flavors when heat waves stress plantations. Gratitude packages the data into animal destined for breeders in Brazil, Guatemala, and Vietnam. He whispers as though afraid to awaken the past that new hybrids might carry a hint of ghost floral into mugs decades from now. Long after the last unprotected forest patch has bowed to axe and plow. For the first time since Coley's legend, innovation loops backward. Future harvests depend on memories preserved in forgotten holes and moss-soft glades. Return, briefly, to the Kava canopy. Rain has ceased. Air tastes of wet stone and bruised mint. A single-room ranger hut stands on stilts above a stream that braids silver threads through reeds. Inside, Selam and Haroon lay out samples under kerosene lamplight. Flame halos tremble against plank walls. Moss tap glass in rhythmic thuds. Selam heats water over a charcoal pinch, drops forest cherries whole into the tin pot, and adds a shard of raw ginger. Liquid darkens to russet, thick with pulp. Everyone drinks in silence. The wild brew coats the tongue like melted figs, lifts at the finish with green pepper can snap, leaves a vapor of jasmine floating behind the sinuses. It is softer than the port-roasted beans of mocha, gentler than London's iron kettle brew's flavor that feels unhurried. Intact, Haroon unrolls a linen scroll hand-drawn map of protected zones and marks the days. Transect in charcoal, he circles 3 trees bearing heavy clusters despite leafless season. Tomorrow, Ranger teams will collect signs for grafting. Outside, a hyrax whistles twice, the forest's version of a curfew bell. Inside the hut, a manual typewriter waits on a shelf, keys dulled by humidity. Selim inserts thin airmail paper, carbon sheet underneath, and writes a letter to her niece in orders. Today we tasted coffee older than the city itself. The forest keeps time in berries and birdsong. Each gene is a memory waiting for someone patient enough to listen. The metal slug strikes ribbon in patient clicks. Each word feels anchored and likely to drift. She folds the letter, seals it with beeswax tapped from a small jar, and places it beside sample envelopes. The wax holds faint orange blossom rumor reminder that bees co-author every story written in coffee pulp. Later, you step onto the hut's porch. Moonlight stripes the understory in silver ladders, cicadas crescendo. Then hush, replaced by the soft glug of water under stilts, breathing slows. Shoulders loosen. The nervous hum that cities install in muscles dissolves into night air. The cup in your hand cools, yet its aftertaste lingers. Green almond, faint lime, something like snowy cedar. You realize the flavor is the forest's lullaby rendered on the tongue. Rainfall cycles, fungal loam, bee-guided pollen. In that hush, it is possible to believe that a mug could carry entire ecosystems. If only one sips slowly enough, at dawn. Boots brush dew from grass blades as the team hikes toward a dirt road where land cruiser idles. Farmers wave from hillside plots terraced like giant stairs. A young girl runs downhill, brandishing a woven satchel bursting with ripe cherries. She offers it to Selim, who weighs the gift in both hands. The beans will fund the girl's school books when sold to the co-op. Selim thanks her by dropping a small laminated photo of the oddest gene bank into the satchel, proof that seedlings gathered today might circle back as drought-proof saplings tomorrow. The vehicle rattles over washboard ruts, climbs out of mist, and reaches asphalt spearing toward orders. In the rear compartment, chilled boxes hum, a portable refrigerator crammed with leaf samples, parchment beads, and the ghost floral shipwreck jostled airtight. 3 days later, you sit aboard an Ethiopian Airlines cargo flight bound for Paris. In the dim galley, a cupping specialist named Marielle conducts a mid-air test. Plastic trays cradle forest microlot beans roasted on Otis's new fluid bed sample roaster. Even amid turbine murmur and seat bell chimes, steam raises clear aromas, bergamot, pine sap, apricot skin. The crew gather first officer, loadmaster, catering attendant, tall cradling paper cups. Lips parted in identical half-smiles of polite astonishment. Marielle predicts European bias. We'll describe the lot as proto-floral, elegant, with a memory of rain. She jots tasting notes on a clipboard that trembles with every air pocket. Yet her handwriting floats steady as helium. Coffee seeds, smuggled centuries ago, now ray into Europe by invitation, bearing flavors the continent never tasted the first time round. Landing lights bloom on the sane, engines low roar against flaps below. Paris street lamps sprout like ember mushrooms in orderly rows. Somewhere among them waits a merry cafe where porcelain cups ring against silver saucers, unaware they will soon cradle forest genes older than Versailles. In the quiet minutes between landing and taxi, imagine steam rising through gilded spouts, curling into chandeliers, twining past velvet drapes. Picture a patron lifting a translucent savor's cup, startled by jasmine that never appears in commercial blends, unaware that bees and shipwreck ghosts corrode the flavor. Coffee's circle tightens once more from Wild Hill to Salon, each sip carrying centuries in it. Swirl. A pale ribbon of light slips between the shutter slats of Madame Duvaugour's second-floor salon on Rue Saint-Anne. The city outside still murmurs in sleep, but inside, footmen in dove-grey livery glide like ghosts over parquet warmed by last night's fire. Each carries the savor's porcelain cup, translucent eggshell blue, rimmed in fire-gilt gold. A pot-bellied silver urn waits on a low cider wood. Its spout ends in a beak of chaste on the sleeves, and gentle fizzing tells that water holds a whisper below the boil. Madame herself appears, slippers silent, brocade robe drawn tight against dawn chill. She pauses at a standing mirror, smooths a single strand of grey into her chicken. Coffee's scent lingers from the previous morning, a reminder, not yet a presence. She inhales, eyes half closed, as though verifying that absence. In a mahogany cabinet lined with crimson silk nestles her complete service decafé. 12 cups, 12 saucers, a sugar bowl shaped like a closed lotus, 6 spoons of gilt silver, his spirit lamp, and a slender, long-nosed Gresti Forge's pot designed so that hot liquid never touches metal until it kisses. Porcelain, each cup's inner wall glimmers with morning light. Gilt rims catch it and throw scattered sparks onto the ceiling. The porcelain itself is so thin you can trace a fingertip round the circumference and feel warm seep even before liquid pours. Status here is measured in translucence. The cup must hold enough heat to curl steam yet show the pale glow of fingers through its side. Madame lifts one cup gently, listens for the almost inaudible ting of foot meetings, saucer proof the pieces survived another year without chip or craze. Her butler, Monsieur Blaise, returns from Café du Palais Royal bearing a small-lidded drum no bigger than a hatbox. Inside rest 250 grams of freshly roasted mocha du Levant beans, a blend that includes, unbeknownst to parlor gossip, 5% of Ceylon's wild forest microlot. Blaze loosens the drum's brass clasp. A plume of oil-scented air escapes, redolent of bergamot and sweet cedar. Guests will never see this drum. In polite society, beans are invisible. Coffee arrives already ground and brewed, like ideas delivered by immaculate messenger. Yet behind every conversation piece lies flame and crackle, burlap and ship hold. In the butler's pantry, a wall-mounted brass grinder awaits. Blaze turns the crank. Each rotation issues a hushed CRC H-CRCH, not enough to wake sleeping footfalls in the corridor. Burrs mill beans into fine powder that spills into a porcelain ramekin. The aroma now unfolds fully, a first wave of dark cocoa, a second of dried apricot, a final glint of jasmine. He transfers to precisely level spoonfuls into the grass pot. Water from the urn flows in a candle-thin stream, stirring grounds into a swirling galaxy. The pot rests on the spirit lamp blue flame no higher than a fingernail for 3 measured minutes. Steam floats in ribbons. Tiny globes of oil glint on the surface like stars melting into dawn. At a round rosewood table near a window, Madame waits alone. Blaze sets a warm saucer first, then lowers the cup, handle angled precisely at 5 o'clock in relation to the table's edge. He pours, never letting liquid splash. Surface tension rises in a perfect meniscus that trembles but does not spill. Madame raises the cup, inhales. Sugar stands ready, a crystal bowl of amber crystal shattered from imported loaf, but she declines for this first pour. The brew meets her lip thick, velvety. She holds it on the tongue, tasting first dark plum, then, faint as a distant garden after rain, jasmine. Unaware she sips forest genes older than Versailles. She notes only that the bitterness seems polite. Her shoulders drop, eyelids half close. The city beyond shutters can wait. She is queen of 5 silent minutes, crowned by rumor alone. By 7 a.m., rumble of carriage wheels echoes up the street. Guests climb curved stairs, gloved hands skimming carved rail. Monsieur Lafayette appears first, cloak damp with winter fog. He bows. Madame gestures to a burger chair upholstered in Odinil silk. Mademoiselle Leggett, aspiring playwright, follows, cheeks flushed despite chill. 2 more arrive, banker, natural philosopher. They sit in a near circle, leaving the table's western quadrant open as polite gap. Blaze refills each cup, this time offering sugar tongs. Lumps clink against porcelain. Conversation begins with weather, shifts gently to rumors of new tariffs on cane sugar, drifts into philosophical waters about whether coffee sharpens moral sentiment or merely polishes wit. In this salon, the spoon is choreography. One must stir only clockwise, only twice, and then place the utensil on the saucer's foreign. Handle aligning north-south. To leave spoon in cup is provincial. To stir more than twice suggests ungoverned appetite. To clink sides loudly implies rustic impatience. Thus does porcelain enforce gentility as silently as any footman. Guests obey rules unconsciously, their gestures polished by years of social rehearsal. Yet beneath manners, coffee's silent spark fans bolder thoughts. Mademoiselle Leggett proposes staging the play in which a cup of coffee reveals hidden truths under guise of a fortune teller. The banker wonders aloud whether Vienna's milk cloud might soften the nation's accent toward trade partners. Ideas swirl hotter than the liquid cooling between sips. Monsieur Raudnitska, apothecary perfumer, holds his cup close to nose. He names notes, grapefruit zest, resinable lemmy, hint of heliotrope. The table pauses, registering new dimensions never before tasted in the dark drink. He explains that volatile oils in certain beans mimic terpenes found in rare flowers. Perhaps future roasts could highlight these aromas intentionally. Madame Duverger imagines marketing small phials of coffee essence. The banker taps notebook, calculating margins. Legge Claffs imagines actresses dabbing bean perfume behind ears. All this while steam thins, rises invisibly into velvet drapes. A liveried courier arrives with a folded parchment seal. Madame opens it discreetly. An invitation to supply her coffee service at next month's reception. For the Comtesse de Provence, such honor means increased bean allotments from the royal's exclusive importer. She must secure a dependable channeler merchant who will not adulterate wild micro-lot beans with cheaper Java. Blaise retrieves his ledger, notes the court date, drafts purchase orders to 2 agents, one in La Havre, another in Bordeaux, each sworn to secrecy. Coffee at court is no longer novelty. It is similar cup shimmering between porcelain fingers saying, I belong to circles where morning starts with jasmine dark brew, not coarse wine or wheat barley broth. Conversation eases into low hum. Blaise dims spirit lamp, liquid level dips. Guests set cups on saucers in near unison, the porcelain chimming soft as fingertip on crystal rim. Outside, bells tollate. Within, velvet drapes filter city clatter to muted hush. Feel shoulders release, breath settle. Notice phantom warmth on fingertips, as though you'd held a sailor's cup. Roma lingers plum, jasmine, cedar-like faint ink on parchment after the quill lifts. Soon we will follow coffee beyond salons into the world of industrial roasters, Mickle spindles, Pullman dining cars. But first, rest in candle-cooled stillness, where beings once guarded by Ottoman decree now sit obedient in porcelain hands. Mid-February snow softens the Illinois prairie to a blank sheet. A Pullman hotel car named Roller glides east toward Chicago, bass journals humming beneath polished mahogany joists. Inside the dining saloon, velvet draperies buffer wheel thrum to a heartbeat hush. Tablecloths lie taut as drumheads. Each setting holds a bone china demi-tasse-framed in cobalt and gold. Steward Mr. Washburn balances a silver vacuum pot, new model of double-walled glass, invented only months earlier. He pours in boiling water. Grounds bloom behind crystal. Petals of dark foam unfurling like time-lapse flowers. Passengers gather. A Kansas sweet baron. Sniffing for fruit notes, a Boston school mistress traveling west as chaperone. A young inventor who sketches axle bearings between sips. Coffee here is more than fuel. It is ceremony promising civilization wherever rail meets horizon, as dawn pinks snowfields. The car passes royal whistle stops where lanterns swing and frost smoke billows from waiting. Horses inside. Spoons stir exactly twice Pullman etiquette borrowed from Parisian salons but softened for. Midwestern candor. The steward calls the flavored dry cherry with a sirego. In truth, a blend heavy with Brazilian Santos, yet still carrying whispers of wild forest jasmine. St. Petersburg, 1896. Midnight blue cloaks the Nevo River under ice thick as cathedral glass. Inside the Alexander Palace, an imperial samovar of hammered silver stands taller than a symphony's kettle drum. Water inside hizzes round a red-hot iron tube filled with birch coals. A lady in waiting presents a porcelain cup in a long-spouted pot filled with a sludge so dark it devours candlelight. Concentrate drips into crystal goblets. Attendants thin it with near-boiling water drawn from the samovar's dragonout tap. Grand. Duchesses, cheeks flushed by skating, sip through sugar cubes gripped between teeth. Nanny Mademoiselle Buxhowden warns that Western filter coffee is watery as snowmelt. Only Russian style gives a body strength to endure palace duties outside. Sled runners shriek over iron-hard snow. Inside, coffee rolls across tongues with heavy velvet texture hazelnut, dark spice, faint orange peel. One goblet stands apart, reserved for a Tsar Nicholas. Porcelain disguised within a filigree silver holder to protect imperial fingers from heat. Beans came by rail across endless Tiger. Mine are swan wagons of burlap smelling of horse sweat and pine. Yet inside the palace they float regal. Divorced from origin, as though roasted by cherubim behind frosted window panes. Paris World's Fair, 1900. The Hettel du Palais lounge flashes with electric chandeliers behind the marble counter. Nickel-plated spindles dispense pre-measured rolls of tissue-thin paper filters each stamped with. An Eiffel Tower watermark. Every pour-over emerges crystal clear. A triumph of engineering and taste marketing. Guests check pocket watches. 1:10 in the morning. Yet the orchestra in the adjacent ballroom still waltzes. Coffee keeps silk gowns swirling. Monocles glinting. Telegrams racing across undersea cables. Sugar rains. But a new fad arrives. A single peel of lemon rind twisted over the cup as rim to spray all that. Flickers briefly on hot surface, releasing midnight bright perfume. Waiters call it La Bazaar John, the yellow kiss. Turin, 1901. Engineer Luigi Bezzera tightens a brass valve on an experimental machine. Steam hisses through a bed of finely ground coffee tamped into a small metal basket. In 25 seconds, a stream of viscous liquid drops into a demi-tastic tawny, crowned by a hazelnut creamer. Patrons blink. The drink is smaller, bolder, finished before conversation cools. Newspapers soon describe caffed espresso as an caffed fatto in fretta. Coffee made quickly, yet the flavor invites lingering. Dark chocolate, burnt sugar, citrus flicker, pressure tames bitterness. Traps volatile aromatics that once vanished in open pots. Espresso becomes city rhythm, workers at. Stand-up counters knock back shots between factory whistles. Poets scribble hike brief lines after a single sip, and cafe owners rejoice that a few grams of grounds now yield coins equal to whole pots. New York, 1911. A Columbia professor named Harvey Wiley lobbies for pure food laws. Testing canned coffee brands for adulterants ground, date, seeds, burnt chicory. Assume nothing powders. His lab rats judge cup clarity, aroma persistence, stomach comfort. Advertisements soon trumpet Wiley approved beans, packaging burlap origins into trust seals. Housewives clip coupons. Soldiers request tins for field rations. Coffee wears its first lab coat. Stepping from parlor to bulletin citation, Chicago. 1927. Brass instruments wail in a basement speakeasy. On a small stove, a glass knob percolator. Gurgles, sending rhythmic pulses rich, steady, louder than sax vibrato. Each bubble climbs a central spout, rains over grounds, darkens liquid until it shimmers black-blue under dim bulbs. Dancing couples inhale roast mingled with whiskey, sweat. Cheap perfumes send cocktail unique to Prohibition night. A waitress in ostrich feather headband curries cups along the edge of the dance floor. The liquid is over-extracted, slightly metallic. Yet dancers gulp gratefully before Charleston kicks resume. In coffee's long mug, percolators mark an egalitarian pulse, error-tolerant, unrefined. But everywhere from mining camps to Broadway backstage, by mid-century, vacuum-sealed tins roll from assembly lines in Hoboken and Melbourne. Nitrogen flush keeps grounds fresh. Every supermarket aisle thrums faintly with coffee room leaking round lids. Radio jingles prompts morning readiness, linking bean to productivity. Glass jar of instant granules appears on pantry shelf, dissolving in water hot but not boiling miracle of convenience, sacrifice of nuance. Yet millions adopt. Coffee has shed salons, rails, courtly whispers now with steams in commuter mug wedged between newspaper and subway pole. Return to Madame Duverger's salon one final time right now. Candles nearly pools of beeswax. Guests gone, footmen vanished. Only the faint tick of a mantle clock remains. She lifts her last cup now cool. Hint of floral acid surfacing like shy spirits. Her reflection shimmers in dark surface, softened, weary, content. She sets cup down, porcelain sighs on saucer. House sleeps. Rest now, traveler. We have traced a single dark beam across half the planet and 5 wide centuries, yet the only thing moving at this moment is your breath, slow and even. Picture the scenes melting together like candle wax. First, the ember-lit stall beside an Ottoman courtyard, beams cracking faintly. Cardamom drifting through shadows still cool from night. Then London's rain-polished alleys where quills flew across pamphlets. Pewter dishes clinked and argument sharpened beneath smoky rafters. Deeper still, the Ethiopian cloud forest. Leaves beaded in silver mist, where wild cherries hide archives of flavor older than any empire. Gilded parlors followed porcelain thin as eggshell. Voices lowered to match the cup's small interiors. Silver spoons drawing silent circles of etiquette. Finally, brass boilers on Pullman rails. Samovars in frost-trimmed palaces. And the soft hiss of an espresso piston coaxing thunder from a single ounce. Each place was nothing more than water meeting roasted seed. Yet every cup carried its own weather-seeded dawn. Soot dusk, jasmine twilight, iron midnight, feel the mattress beneath you. Warm and steady, list in the quiet of your mind. The comforts that coffee's slow pilgrimage now supports. Mornings that rise without struggle. A spoon tapping porcelain becomes the day's first compass point, turning sleep into intention. Conversations that dare to wander from street philosophers to jazz drummers. A shared cup dissolved the distance between questions and answers. Work made lighter. Printers aligning lead type, sailors charting shoals, code writers chasing logic at midnight toolbar, a sliver of wakefulness that began as wild fruit on a green hillside. Jasmines whispered by forest genes. Bergamot hinted in lost shipwreck beans, proof that taste is a library, not a ledger. With each item your shoulders ease a notch lower, as though gratitude itself were a gentle hand pressing you toward pillow depth on your next inhale. Remember the hiss of water striking copper sand in Istanbul. Exhale, and feel London drizzle fade against a candle-warm interior. Inhale once more, as if drawing jasmine mist through forest canopy. Exhale slowly long enough to cross the Seine at night, where porcelain cups wink under chandeliers. Breath becomes a shuttle weaving the journey into something pocket-sized. Easily carried into dreams, civilizations argued, traded, banned, text praised, and industrialized coffee. Yet no decree, no ledger, no jingle can outlast the quiet moment when a cooled cup meets saucer. On the drinker pauses, savoring the delicate residue of oils, the faint echo of distant plantations. The calm certainty that warmth has done its work. That pause, more than any spice route or patent, is coffee's true invention, is still a point where awareness meets ease. You are in that still point now. If stray thoughts flicker in finished lists, tomorrow's alarms imagine placing each one on a parchment schedule in a London coffee house, then sliding it across the table to the underwriter on duty. Let him tally the risk. Let the ledgers close. Your only task is to rest. Should tension linger in hands or jaw, recall the forest botanists cupping whole cherries steeped with ginger. Their silence was not emptiness, but respect. Offer the same respect to your own quiet and inward bow, free of judgment or urgency. There is nothing left to sip, nothing more to learn this evening. The world can finish steeping on its own. All that remains is the gentle settling of breath, the slow cooling of muscles, the small, steady ember at your core that knows how to keep safe watch while you drift. May your sleep be as smooth as creamer on still espresso, as deep as forest soil beneath ancient roots, and as restorative as the very first cup shared at daybreak long ago. Good night.